How's it going, folks? I'm Cody Campbell with High Ground Gaming. Today we are unboxing and reviewing the HyperX DuoCast. This is the latest in HyperX's line of USB microphones. We're going to start by walking you through the specs, then we're going to open it up, let you take a look at what comes inside. After that, we'll go to the review portion where I'll give you my thoughts on it, and then we'll go to High Ground Gaming's final score. Stick around. So the HyperX DuoCast comes with two polar patterns. It comes with cardioid and omnidirectional. It has a tap to mute sensor, it has an internal pop filter, it has an RGB ring, it has a low profile shock mount, and it utilizes NGENUITY software. That's about it for the specs though. Let's open it up. All right, so we got the microphone right on display, front and center. Underneath, we've got some paperwork here, quick start guide. And inside, we've got the microphone, USB Type A to USB Type C cable, that's always good. And then we've got an adapter in case you want to put it on some sort of boom arm. So there's the tap to mute sensor right on top there. And the shock mount, you can already see, is very bouncy. It's going to absorb all the vibrations from any sort of desk or anything like that, so the microphone doesn't pick up on them. The stand itself is pretty low. It's not height adjustable, but it looks like you can adjust the angle of it. So if you want to tilt it upwards so it's more in line with your mouth, you can absolutely do that. I don't know if you can see that super well, but on the back of the microphone, this is where the USB Type-C cable goes in, and then here we have a headphone pass-through, so you can listen to your own voice as well as what's going on through the computer. And then this right here is the RGB strip. And here on the back, it looks like we have a volume dial. It doesn't look like there's a gain dial anywhere on here. That seems to be the only thing that's really missing. It looks like the microphone can just sort of pop in and out of the shock mount there using this ring on the side of it. It's very lightweight. All the weight seems to be in the bottom of it. The top is very light, which reminds me a little bit of the HyperX Quadcast S. Overall, it's got a similar design. It's got that sort of pill shape that HyperX has been doing for all of their microphones. And I think it's pretty stylish looking. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and hook it up to my PC, test it out a little bit, and we'll be right back with the review portion. Don't go anywhere. All right, I've spent some time with the HyperX DuoCast and I'm ready to talk about it. But first, if you haven't already, please hit the like and subscribe button. All right, I'm gonna start off like I always do by talking about build quality, but to be honest, there isn't a whole lot to talk about that I didn't already cover during the unboxing section. It's got a nice, sleek black design. It's very lightweight, which can make it feel a little cheap, but it's also gonna make it easier to mount, so it's kind of a pro and con there. The tap to mute button works great with the LED display right there. And also the volume knob for the pass-through actually has an LED display as well. But as I said, there's not a lot else to talk about in terms of its actual design, so let's go ahead and jump into the audio quality. The sound quality on this is pretty good for a USB microphone. It has a decent pickup for highs, mids, and lows. Voices sound very natural through it. It doesn't peak a lot when you speak super loud, and it doesn't cut out too much when you speak really softly. But you don't really need to take my word for it. Here is an unedited clip of me using the DuoCast. All right, here is the audio quality for the HyperX DuoCast. This is what it sounds like when I speak very loud, and this is what it sounds like when I speak very softly. I haven't noticed a lot of issues with peaking. I have picked up a couple of plosives, so that internal pop filter might not be quite as good as an external one, but I think it does its job pretty well, and it looks real nice, so, you know, points for that. So now that we've talked about the sound quality, let's talk about the kinds of recording that you're going to be using this for. I mentioned the two kinds of polar patterns that this uses before. One of them is cardioid and the other is omnidirectional. Cardioid is for when you want to record one directional sound. So if you're recording one person speaking directly into the microphone, you want it set to cardioid. Basically what that means is that there is a cone shape that it will receive coming directly out of the face of the microphone, and you want to speak directly into that. And it will isolate all other noise. Now it's good for a couple reasons. One, It blocks out white noise. It's going to block out ambient audio from the room around you. So if you've got someone in the other room talking or the TV's on or something, it's not going to pick up anything on that side, just the side that you're speaking into. And the other reason is because of your own voice. If you've got walls, hard surfaces, a desk that your voice is going to bounce off of and reverberate back into the back of the microphone, it will not pick that up. So it's going to cut down on things like echoing. Now the other mode, omnidirectional, receives in a 360-degree perimeter from around the microphone. So you're not going to get any of that noise cancellation for reverberation and stuff like that. But if you're recording a group of people, or if you're doing a conference call, or if you're doing a podcast and you want to just set this in the center of a table, have everybody sit around it and all speak into the microphone, it's going to pick up everyone's voices equally. Microphones like the Quadcast or the Blue Yeti, they have 4 polar patterns. They also have one that's bidirectional for essentially like interviews. If you've got one person on one side and one person on the other, it'll record from both directions like 2 cardioids and cut out the sides. And then there's stereo, which is basically a 180-degree wall of reception for if you want to record like a panel of people all sitting facing the same direction. Those 2 are a lot less commonly used, which is why this one shows cardioid and omnidirectional. Those are the 2 most popular polar patterns. And to be honest, you can do those other 2 kinds of recording using the omnidirectional setting. You're just not going to get as much noise isolation. To be perfectly honest, probably 90% of the users who are buying a USB microphone will get by just fine with just cardioid, and the SoloCast is probably going to be enough. But it's going to be rare for people to actually need all 4 polar patterns. Really, most people who are buying the Quadcast S are doing it for the beautiful RGB display, not because they actually need all 4 polar patterns. This one is kind of a good compromise in that respect. It's giving you one little RGB strip, which is more than what the SoloCast has, but less than the Quadcast S. And it's giving you the 2 polar patterns that people are probably going to need the most. It also benefits from having access to HyperX's NGENUITY software. This has a few features. Some of them are hypercritical, some of them are nice aesthetic touches. You can also adjust how loud the mic output is through the headphone jack pass-through. So when you're listening to your system audio through the microphone jack, and you want to be able to hear yourself, you can fine-tune how loud you're hearing your own voice in relation to the system audio. Then there's also a high pass filter thrown through there and a lot of RGB control. Now, HyperX's RGB control is pretty cool. This strip isn't a lot of RGB. It's a nice touch, I think. It's subtle, but it gives it a little bit of flair. The NGENUITY software gives it access to 6 different lighting effects. That's not a ton, but there's a lot of modifications you can do to those. You can layer the effects, so you can put one effect on top of another one, then lower the opacity on the top one so that you can see the bottom one through it just a little bit. That's pretty cool. You can also do a lot of color modification and stuff like that. Like I cut out the yellows, greens, and reds and just left it with the blues and purples and stuff like that. And I think it looks pretty cool like this, but you could also adjust it so it's just greens and yellows or anything you want, really. That's about it for the features, though. Let's get down to the verdict. So the HyperX DuoCast MSRP's at $99.99. That's not super cheap, but it is a pretty reasonable price. Its main competition is probably the Blue Yeti Nano, and that also MSRP's at $99.99. You can find it on Amazon for $96.99 right now, but like same difference really. What this has that the Blue Yeti Nano does not have is the tap to mute button with the LED display. That one has a mute button and it's just got like a little light on it. It's not quite as flashy as this. And also this uses a USB Type-C cable where the Nano uses a USB Mini, which is admittedly slower. Honestly, I've used Blue Yetis in the past. I've never really had an issue with audio lag because of using a micro USB instead of the USB Type-C. I don't really think that's something you have to worry about, but it is something worth noting. Honestly, the audio quality between the two is comparable. The feature set is comparable. Really, what I think it's going to come down to for a lot of people is the aesthetics. This has a very gamery, modern design. I personally think it looks really cool. Some people probably prefer something a little more professional looking, a little more classic, and the Blue Yeti Nano really has that. Also, I'm not sure, but I don't think the Blue Yeti Nano comes with a shock mount, so you might have to buy that separately. That's like a $10, $15 purchase, not a huge deal, but it does offset the cost just a tiny bit. Overall, I think if you're looking at the two of them and one of them strikes your fancy more than the other, you should just follow your heart and go for it. I don't think that there's enough of a difference functionally between the two that it's really enough to sway anyone's decision. So with all that in mind, we are giving this a 4 out of 5. It provides a nice middle ground between the low-end cardioid only microphones and the high-end quad cardioid microphones that are honestly more than what most people need. The price point is not amazing, but it is fair, I think. And anyone who likes this microphone, who thinks it covers all of their needs, I think it's a reasonable purchase. That's going to do it for us today, though, folks. Why don't you go ahead and drop down into the comments and let us know what you think. Do you think the Quadcast S is a nice addition to HyperX's lineup, or do you think that it's just filling space? While you're at it, please like and subscribe if you haven't already. We've got a lot more content coming really soon, and we'd hate for you to miss any of it. Okay, everybody. Thanks for watching. Happy gaming.